Guys, we had a major timeline shift due to the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. I was at the rally, just spontaneously, I decided to stop and I witnessed these things, firsthand experience. I felt the energy and now I'm getting just an overwhelming amount of downloads specifically about this event. So I'm just gonna tell you guys what they're telling me because I have it all written down. I was there for this change. I was literally at the rally, felt the energy, and I know exactly what is going on now. I got all of these downloads and it's all about unification, and that's what's being spread everywhere right now. We shifted onto the positive timeline. Let me explain. So this is what they're calling the shot heard around the world, which is true. This is going to be the center stage foundation of the new evolution of humanity from here on out. This assassination was going to take place. Two timelines were happening simultaneously and they split off. Let me explain what happened on the first timeline. The first timeline we're going to talk about is the negative timeline. That is that apocalyptic timeline. Donald Trump was assassinated. The delegates continued to hold the primaries. They arrived at Monday's convention after President Trump was assassinated in Milwaukee or in Chicago, I believe, and a replacement nominee was chosen at the convention. It turned into a complete bloodbath between everybody trying to scramble and find a nominee to select them and go against the Biden administration. So that timeline was just out of control. And I believe it was between RFK Jr. and JD Vance. I know they were really pushing for them. But yeah, that was the negative timeline. After the death of former President Donald Trump on Saturday, RFK became the nominee for the Republican committee. He was leading the last timeline in its future of the inevitable destruction and control of humanity. RFK Jr. knew about the two timeline splits. Donald Trump knew about the two timeline splits and they still continued on. So RFK, in replacement of Donald Trump, knew what the agenda was, what timeline he inevitably was on, and what he was going to do was try to correct as many things as possible. We know the elites had full control of that timeline. RFK Jr. also was aware of this with the timeline splits occurring. He knew he was going to be the candidate that was going to be able to take over that timeline and try to lead everybody a little bit out of destruction, but he knew in the future evolution of humanity that it was going to just degrade, and that was the apocalypse that was coming. He was prepared to do the job. He knew all of the dirty inside secrets. He was groomed from that child up into what he is now, and he was witnessing and had a really big heart change, especially when he met with the councils. So that was the first negative timeline. We are not on that timeline, guys. We have shifted completely out of that. I don't know if you have felt the energy. You may be feeling drained or exhausted. You may be feeling a vibrating sensation, shaky, nausea, headaches. You may have confusion or head pressure from this change. You may feel like your world is just spinning and it's just out of control and you can't really pinpoint exactly what it is. So that's your central nervous system. When we have big timeline jumps like that, it kind of throws everything out of whack and you're gonna physically feel this. And also with the big timeline shifts, now is the time to look out for those Mandela effects. Let's talk about the second positive timeline, the positive timeline that we have shifted to. Everybody should be celebrating. This is excitement. It's still gonna be a bumpy road going ahead because we have to unravel quite a bit of things, but this is the forefront of what we have. So what we were experiencing with Donald Trump was this interdimensional interference. You know, Trump was grazed. He knew prior to this incident that something was going to happen. He knew that there was two ways of this going. He knew he was going to be fatally shot and he knew that he was going to be grazed. He was prepped on this a lot earlier, but he didn't know when. They wouldn't tell him when this is going to happen. He just was told and briefed that it was going to happen, and this is how they needed to react afterward. So Trump was very privy to the two timeline splits. He knew he was going to die in the one reality very instantaneously, no pain, and the other one was he was going to carry on, because that was the forefront of uniting not only the United States, but uniting all of the nations afterwards. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Donald Trump, but I respect his unique position in his contract to unify and change the direction of human evolution and the entire human population, and the avoidance of the future apocalyptic timeline. He knew about this, and he knew, and we're kind of presented with him. He's our only candidate that can't be bought, has been to those parties with the high elites, knows all about everything, and they were really trying to take him out. Yes, they really did. They succeeded in the one timeline. They did not exceed in this timeline. I was also stationed in between two media stations, so I was watching the cues of the anchors, and I was also watching the cues of the snipers that were directly in front of me, as well as Donald Trump. He was directly in front of me, and I found it very interesting that it was the perfect photo opportunity, right down to those specific angles, those lines of direction. Look at this. He was in the know of all of it. But there's so much more that is involved in this whole situation. So this is only part one. I'm gonna have a part two. So make sure that you check that video out, because this all falls right in line and you need to be privy to this information. Love ya.